Thank you for downloading this podcast from the British Theatre Guide. For more information about British Theatre Guide, please visit britishtheatreguide.info.
Actor and author Emily Woof is best known for her film and TV work such as Mandy in The Full Monty, Shannon in Velvet Goldmine and Nancy in Oliver Twist. But she has also written 2 novels, with another due to be published next year, and had a background in devised and physical theatre before her film career. At this year's Edinburgh Festival Fringe, she is performing her own solo play, Revolver, directed by her husband, Hamish McColl, who was a co-founder of the theatre company The Right Size, and more recently has written screenplays for films including Paddington, Johnny English Reborn, Mr. Bean's Holiday, and Dad's Army. I spoke to Emily when she had just finished a performance during her Edinburgh run, and I asked her what Revolver is about.
Well, it's about adolescent sexuality in a way, and how it was quite vulnerable and quite exploited in the 1960s, I think, and that still feels very relevant today. I think that, you know, young girls, young people, young boys as well, you know, it's quite difficult to navigate how to develop in a kind of, I don't know, a kind of fairly innocent way. And it's kind of about looking back at the 60s and where some of that, the ways that celebrity culture and the need to sort of be someone started really mattering to adolescents, and how that sort of affected their development. I mean, that's a kind of rather sort of, I don't know, quite a worthy way of talking about the show. It's also about it's about fury, and it's about being obsessed with John Lennon and the Beatles. So, and it's got this character, Valerie Solanas, right in the heart of it, who is just a tower of anger and bad-mouthing everybody, and she's great fun.
Yeah, I mean, even in the society, that her society for cutting up men, I mean, her attitude really is in that title, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And it's about the main character who sort of holds it all together, is someone who has never been able to express anger in her life, really. She's always tried to be good, and but things haven't always gone that well for her. And she's getting over a divorce, and she's getting over the death of her mother. And during the course of the show, she discovers that her mother had experienced a very deep trauma when she was a teenager, and that sort of generational trauma comes through her, and then that's where she's almost possessed by the spirit of Valerie Solanas with that sort of state of mind that the way the world is all wrong. The way the world is all wrong, because the male-dominated culture is, you know, in some ways, you could argue, kind of destroying our planet, destroying our world, causing just so much difficulty all the time. And so there's a kind of review of Valerie Solanas kind of going, well, actually, she really did have a point. But at the same time, this contemporary woman who's dealing with all these things actually goes on a very personal journey to connect her to her mother, which is much more personal and touching, and in the end she won't commit the kind of violence that Valerie Solanas is promoting.
So this is sort of cross-generational, so that you've got your main character is set now, is that right? So we're looking back at the 60s with some hindsight.
Yes, exactly right. Yes, the story crosses generations between a mother and a daughter, and the daughter finds out things about her mother's life that she didn't know. And that's where we kind of keep diving back into the 60s to this really charming, sort of just effervescent 14-year-old who's in love with John Lennon.
Right. And is any of this autobiographical? Because we were both born at a similar time in the 60s, so our parents were around at that time and experiencing what we didn't.
I would say that it's not really autobiographical. The autobiographical elements would just be that the girl is from Newcastle, and obviously I was brought up in Newcastle, so there's a kind of Geordie spirit which I love to embody. And then the contemporary woman is quite, I would say, quite well educated, is doing her best. She's kind of worked in academia, whereas the mother, the woman who was a teenager in the 60s, just perhaps wouldn't have gone to university, was of a different class really. And there's something of that generational difference where the one generation sort of jumps out of their own background. That story is somewhere in my family, that the one generation can kind of become distant from the previous generation through having different aspirations really in life.
Yeah.
So that's kind of autobiographical, but the actual details of it aren't really autobiographical. I mean, I didn't have a mother who was a Beatles fan.
I probably did. I know my dad was, but
your dad was, yeah. Well, I hope you can come and see this show. You'll absolutely love it. It's all about that. It's about also like how we idealized the 1960s and how actually a lot of things went wrong in the 1960s. Really.
Yeah, well, there are different ways of looking at the 1960s. Those on the right sometimes see it as when everything went wrong, when the establishment was destroyed. But we see the 1960s as like the swinging 60s with like the Beatles and second wave feminism and all that. But it was also contrasts as well. I mean, I can't imagine my parents having anything to do with the swinging 60s. There was also the old values were still sort of mingling with the new as well, weren't they?
Yeah, completely. And I think that's my character in the 60s is sort of dealing with that, with her sort of parent figure who's actually her grandmother, but who is, and one of the lines in the show is where she's talking to John Lennon and she says, "Oh, me Nana Mary hates you because of what you said about being more popular than Jesus," which is true.
Yeah.
And there's that contrast that the older generation were, obviously very against especially some of the anti-religious feelings of that time.
Yeah, and I'm sure Newcastle was similar to where I was born in Manchester, in that it was quite distant from the real trendy sort of Carnaby Street side of the 60s.
Yeah, I'm sure it was. Well, that's the young girl, the character, the 14-year-old who's from Newcastle. She runs away to London to come and see John Lennon at the airport, to see him off when he's going on tour to America. And of course, she's just there with millions of screaming girls. But in her imagination, she thinks that, he's seen her and he notices her and that she's very special to him. And there's a kind of almost like a spiritual longing for John Lennon in the show. And I suppose and in London, she does go to Carnaby Street and she does end up having experiences that she perhaps wouldn't have had in Newcastle. But sadly, it all goes a bit wrong for her.
Right. I don't know if you've ever looked on your Wikipedia page, but on there is actually a photo of a ticket for Revolver from Edinburgh Fringe 1993. So this has been a long time in the making, hasn't it?
Well, really, this is a whole new show.
Right.
I should have called it Revolver 2 because it's not the same show at all. So I don't know why I didn't. I just kept the same title because it had some of the same elements. But I realise now I should have called it Revolver 2. But yeah, it's some. I was sort of interested in doing something about Valerie Solanas then, but then obviously I haven't done anything on it since then, and just picked it up again this year because it feels like those themes are just still very relevant. Really, I've had women come to see the show and then coming out just so thoughtful and concerned that really like nothing's changed. Nothing's got better.
Yeah.
If anything, things are getting worse. And there's a sort of recognition in the show that the kind of the hope and the idealism things are slipping backwards somehow for both for men and women and in the world, it's tough. So in a way, I feel like the show is a cry for action. That's what I do. feels like to me.
Have you changed in the last 30 years that's given you a different angle or a different look on the same sorts of ideas?
Yeah, definitely. I think what I'm struck by actually is how when I was working, when I was, in my very early 20s, I was like, I don't know, I didn't really think about what I was doing. I just did it in a quite a kinetic way. And I don't think I realized how it's just sort of prescient it was, or kind of how it was really tapping into something. And in a way, I feel that that's still the case, but I'm looking back at it now and seeing that what I was doing then is still so relevant, but now I can do it with a bit more narrative around it, a bit more objectivity around it. So it's not just such a kind of raw expression of anger. It's more of a
more reflective.
Rounded. It's more reflective, but it's actually even much, much angrier.
Yeah, but in a more measured way, perhaps.
Yeah, if that's possible.
Yeah. Well, both you and your director, stroke husband, Hamish McColl, you both come from a devising physical theatre background. So what's your process of creating a show like this?
So it's always a case of writing, then improvising, then writing, then improvising, and each time the text and the characters get honed. And then because, Hamish and I both have a lot of experience writing in other genres. So I've written novels and scripts, and Hamish writes scripts now. So we just have a much greater awareness of basically structure. So the whole structuring of narrative is more at the forefront, even when we're just sort of coming up with raw ideas, I guess, which I don't think was the case when I was younger. Yeah,
because you see a lot of devised shows on the Edinburgh Fringe, a lot of student shows, and structure is something that's often a problem, isn't it? Finding a structure to hang some possibly great ideas and material on.
It's really hard to find a narrative that has meaning, that actually sings with the themes and the characters that you're creating. It is really hard to find a narrative that is satisfying and has, and that is touching, that takes the audience on a journey. That I'm really proud of this Revolver, the Revolver 2, as I think we should call it, because it really does take the audience on a very big journey. It's got a very big scale to it. So thematically, and also just the fact that it's crossing generations and touching on big ideas of social change and feminism. And yet it's also just this personal story about a woman coming to terms and discovering who her mother really, really was. It's just playing on a lot of levels, but it also really comes round, I think, to a satisfying end. And that I'm really proud of, because I do know how that, I'm pleased with it, to be honest, because it's very hard that is the hardest thing, especially with devised work, maybe.
Yeah. Not long after you did Revolver 1, as it wasn't called at the time, you were sort of stolen away by the film industry. But I read an article you did from The Guardian a few years ago. It seemed to suggest that you were never really comfortable in that world.
Yeah, that's interesting. Now I'd actually really love to do some filming again. I think at the time I was, it was tough. I came from theatre. I was used to making my own work. I just always had something I kind of was yearning to say or to make, and being an actress in film was just such a shock to me. I never didn't go to drama school. I didn't do any of that. So I just wasn't really prepared for that world. And yet there's something about filming that I I still do absolutely love, and that is the kind of detailed concentration that you have to have when you do a take. I absolutely love that. I love the purity of that moment,
Yeah.
I don't know. It's the same in theatre, but I really relish that in film. But the world of film and of being whether you're getting the job and of being a well-known actress or not a well-known actress, all of that I found I didn't do very well with all of that, I don't think.
Yeah. And I suppose you've got a lot less control because you were making your own work in theatre that was, would you call it avant-garde? It certainly wasn't scripted, conventional plays, was it, that you were doing?
No, that's a really good point. I would say it kind of was. It was kind of avant-garde. It was there was a kind of expressionism to it. It was quite poetic. It wasn't conventional plays. I just recently wrote a more conventional play, actually. That was quite hard. Yeah.
Yeah, because you went to, you and Hamish, you went to École Philippe Gaulier, didn't you? What did that give you both?
Yeah, so Philippe and I spent about 6 months working with Philippe, and then I did some work with someone called Monica Pagneux, who taught the kind of physical side of using a method called Feldenkrais, which I still use in my life now. It's a really wonderful way of just preparing the body to be very, open and present. And Philippe, I suppose, Philippe was a master of being playful and of being quite extreme, I think. That's what I think I took from it. And Hamish, of course, his work's always been quite different to mine in that he was in a double act for years and was really doing clown work. I mean, he was a clown, really. And I was never a clown like that. I mean, the show is quite funny. I do have ended up doing quite a bit of comedy in my work, but it's not really the same slapstick. Hamish used to do sort of slapstick.
Yeah. Yes, I remember, with The Right Size.
Yeah, that's right.
And both of you have gone from that to writing, which is more of a solo activity. You've written novels and he's written screenplays. Does that seem a big contrast to the other work that you used to do?
Yes, and you don't decide to do these things with a kind of design of where your career or your life or your artistic life is going to go. You just do. Like I used to have very strong Zen practice, and I remember my Zen teacher saying, well, if there's a mountain there, well, you might as well climb it. And it's like that, like these things would just come up. Like, I need to write a book. I just find myself writing a book about my real dad, and that becomes a novel. And that would seem the right way to do it. And then I end up writing another novel and then a third novel. So I just sort of, I don't think I made a plan that I would end up writing prose. But yes, it is a much more lonely, alone discipline, especially the novel. Yeah. And Hamish is more writing film scripts, which is also very alone. But at some point, there's, a nightmare of committees who he's having to deal with. I don't envy him that.
And recently, I've seen you've earned, not just been awarded, you've earned a PhD from Lancaster University. So congratulations on that.
Thank you. Yes, I was very pleased. I got a full scholarship to do it. So it was quite a nice, that made it sort of really possible to do it. So, and that was good. And that changed a lot in the way that I think, actually. I think I remembered or re-remembered, if that's possible, that I don't have to be afraid of ideas, philosophical ideas, big ideas, and that they are They kind of underpin everything. And it was great to have those few years just to, go down a few rabbit holes of Nietzsche and different ideas. And in fact, that's what my last show, Blizzard, was about, Nietzsche, that I did a couple of years ago.
Yeah. The PhD was brought together dance and novel writing. So how do they come together?
Yeah, well, with difficulty, to be honest. After my first year of doing the PhD, I kind of I turned around to my supervisor and said, when I asked the question for my PhD, can I dance a novel? I said, oh, I've worked it out. I know the answer now to my PhD. The answer's no. You can't. And there's no point even trying to join these disciplines. But then, of course, I got into what is the connection between the somatic experience and language and, the body and prose and the body and narrative. And it all got quite theoretical. And I really actually enjoyed that. I found it tough, but I enjoyed it. And
now you're back on stage. Does it feel good to be back creating work on stage in front of an audience again?
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, I love it. I feel like when it's going well, I love it. It's it's tough some nights, some days are tough. But when this show, Revolver 2, as we're calling it, that has been put together on a bit of a shoestring. So, but the production quality is very good. I really wanted to make the video design and the sound design and everything very high quality. But it did mean that, when I opened the show, there'd been very, very little time to do any previews or you just don't have that kind of support around you. So it's scary, it's like going out of an airplane without a parachute. You're just out in front of a real audience and you barely know your words yet. That's how I felt. It's been scary, bit of a roller coaster. But once I've played the show, like I've played it now 6-7 times, yeah, now I feel great because when I'm on stage, I know I'm going, and I really enjoy taking the audience on a journey. I feel very confident doing that. So, yeah, it is nice to be back on stage.
What's the audience response been so far?
Fantastic. Yeah, really fantastic. Yeah, wonderful. Yeah, very warm, very, very moved.
So what happens next for Revolver 2 or for anything else that you're doing?
I don't know. I think I decided to choose Revolver 2 when all the deadlines for Edinburgh were over, and I just snuck in on a cancellation at the Pleasance and sort of put it to, I haven't really thought about it. My next project is just to rewrite this play. And then, I don't know, I woke up this morning, to be honest, and for the first time in ages, I had this open window in my mind, and I thought, I might make something new. What am I going to do next? And that was nice.
So that's something to take back into the rehearsal room.
But it would be nice. I mean, yeah, I hope so. I mean, Edinburgh is a sort of showcase. So I guess me and the producer, who's from Shared Experience, I guess Shared Experience are hoping that the show will have another life and we'll be able to bring it into London, maybe take it to New York. I think it would be great in New York. So we'll see.
That was Emily Woof, whose play Revolver, produced by Shared Experience, opened at Pleasance Courtyard as part of the Edinburgh Festival Fringe on Thursday the 14th of August and runs daily at 2:20pm until Monday the 25th of August 2025. For more details and tickets, you can go to www.pleasance.co.uk or www.edfringe.com, or you can also find more information on the Shared Experience website at www.sharedexperience.org.uk.
You've been listening to a podcast from British Theatre Guide. For more information, please visit britishtheatreguide.info.